All right, continuing our series on what's a real church. Again, I want to just point out that I'm not doing this to try and make the church look bad. You know, it's kind of like when you go to a doctor. You know, if a doctor sits there and tells you everything that's right with you, what a waste of time, right? I mean, there's a lot of parts to the body, and reciting everything that works fine is a waste of time. The doctor wants to know what hurts, what's not working right, and you want him to tell you what's not working right and how to fix it. Now, I'm certainly not a doctor, but I've been a Christian for almost 40 years now, a little over 39 and a half. And I've been a serious student of the Bible. I've been preaching and teaching most of that time. I've been doing counseling for almost 30 years now. I think I have a pretty good idea of what's wrong with the church. And so I want to share so that Christians, or true Christians that understand the reality of the issues, or at least Christians that want to understand the reality of the issues, will be able to do better, whatever. Something like that. All right? So we started talking about, you know, why don't people come to church? And the number one reason given usually is money. The church is all about money, and the church says it's not all about money, but everyone knows the truth. It is all about money. The building, the pastor's salary, the rest of the staff salary, that's a lot of money, people. Of course, the church has to have money. You don't believe it's not about the money? Watch the offering start dropping. You'll hear it's all about the money. Pastor will probably be out of a job because not enough people giving not enough money. Then we morphed into talking about attitudes and vision and so forth. This week I really want to go into, I don't know, how do I say this? I want to give you some examples from my life, which is what I usually preach from, of examples where the church just doesn't get it. They don't understand what the reality is, what the real world is like. Now, many of you have heard of or even been a member of a church that meets in a school. Hey, it makes a lot of sense. Church meets on Sunday, school meets Monday through Friday, no conflict of interest. Building sits empty on Sunday mostly. Why not? Church will have more money so they can do more good works. Hopefully they do. Hopefully it's not just to get more salary. But there's a problem here. In most communities, I don't know about all, but in many communities, let's say many communities, did you know that it's illegal for an ex-con to go into a school building? Especially if somebody's a registered sex offender. And before you get all, well, we don't care about them, we don't want them, did you realize you can be a registered sex offender for indecent exposure? Urinating in public? Depends on how the DA is feeling. Yeah. You don't know what these people are guilty of. And people, I've talked about the fact that we can't grade sins. That sin isn't worse than this one. Sin is sin. You tell your little white lie, you're going to hell. Just like that ex-con is going to hell if he doesn't repent. Now, if he repents, that we should welcome him back as a brother. All right? I mean, God wipes the slate clean. Why do we maintain score? I'm just asking. But you know what's really sad is when I heard a pastor one time, when told that he had several people in his church that would not be allowed to attend because they were going to start meeting in a school on Sundays. They've got their own building, but it's too small. And the pastor and the board said, hey, we'll meet in the school. Great idea. Some ex-cons came to him and said, that means we can't go. We got to change churches. Now here's where it's really sad, people. The pastor said, well, I didn't know that. I'm sure the board would have said, I didn't know that. These men are out of touch with reality. There are a lot of people that turn their lives around in prison. And if you move your church into a public school, odds are good that they can't go to church anymore. So you're telling them you don't care about them. That's really what you're saying. You're not important to us. Believe me, people, they hear that message. Many times, these are men and women that don't feel welcomed anyway. Many times, when they're in prison, they're doing fine in their faith. They get outside. See, in prison, you don't have all these denominations and everything. Just everyone gets together in one room and they worship God. They get on the outside and it's different. And they aren't always welcome. And then you throw something like that in there. No wonder we lose so many of our ex-cons. But what it really amounts to is people is we're grading sins. They're an ex-con, they deserve what they get. And I say they paid their penalty. They paid their debt to society. Give them a shot. It's bad enough they can't get a decent job. Yeah, if you're an ex-con, there's loads of jobs you can't get. There's a lot of jobs you can't get if you've even been arrested, even if you aren't convicted. Christians, they face so many strikes against them. Why do we throw another one in there? We think it's okay to tell a 3-year-old, oh, that's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. Liar. And then you want to badmouth the ex-con? Well, he's a sinner. So are you. There is no grade to sin. James tells us if you're guilty of one sin, you're guilty of breaking all the sins. I think that was James. Pretty sure. It's in the Bible. I have to go look it up. If anyone wants to know, call me, email me, write me, scream at me. Along those lines of grading sins, you know, one of my pet peeves, and I've shared this before, is, and pastors have done it to me numerous times. Hey, pastor, will you come to visit our church? We meet on Thursday night. Your church doesn't have anything going. I'd love to have you come in. You can even speak. Okay, Velcro, I'll be there. We've been in existence since 2007, and only 2 of them have ever showed up. 2. 2 out of dozens. Now, why do people do that? And people do it all the time. It's not just about me. People say to somebody on Sunday morning, somebody says, hey, let's go out to lunch this week. Okay, I'll give you a call, and they don't. They never intended to. But here's the thing. We think because we aren't there when they get their disappointment, that we aren't inflicting pain on them. We're just not there to see it. The pain's still there. Yeah, they get the message. You don't want to spend time with them. If you don't want to spend time with them, then have the courage to say on Sunday morning, no, I really don't want to spend the time this week. You can ask me again, or you know what, my life's too busy, I just don't have time to spend with you. Now they're going to feel the rejection, but it's not as bad as what you're doing now by saying, oh yeah, I'll do it, and never do. 2 Corinthians 5:19-21. You know, we love 22 and 23. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy. Listen, people, 19-21 is just as important. Paul wrote this list out. He did it in a couple books. Jesus did it in the Gospels. But Paul in Galatians 5:19-21 says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. Obvious, people. Obvious. When you're sinning, it's obvious. Not just to God and not just to you, but to everyone else, whether they're Christian or not. The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions and factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. Now, some of those are really bad. Some of them aren't so bad. I mean, we know sexual immorality and impurity, those are terrible. Debauchery. Did you know these things happen amongst Christians every week in most churches? There are people living in sexual immorality, living in adultery, living in a lifestyle of fornication, and the church doesn't say anything. Well, pastor might preach a nice sermon, but he does it in a generic manner and doesn't confront anyone. Hey, the leadership of that church should be confronting people. The leader, I don't care about the elected leaders, I'm talking about the leaders. Are you a real Christian? Stand up. Speak the truth. You know, idolatry, pastors preach a nice sermon about how, and I like this one, the TV is the worst idol of today. It is. But we don't worship idols, you know, the real idols. So we think we're okay. Witchcraft, well, we don't do that, so that's okay. Those are terrible people. Hatred runs rampant in the church today. Discord, jealousy, fits of rage. I see these things all the time, people. Dissensions and factions. We call that denominations. You know how Paul finished that passage? He said, those who do this will not inherit eternal life. Christians, he's talking about you. You got jealousy in your church, envy. You got factions. We call them cliques. You got cliques in your church? Sure you do. It's human nature. Everyone wants to be in that special clique. And usually that special clique says, well, we're mostly family and we've been in this church forever and it takes a long time to get in there. You know, Christians, I call you a hypocrite if that's your excuse. What you should be doing is inviting people that aren't part of your little clique to come join you for an outing, a get-together, a gathering, a gab session in the foyer, and then next week invite somebody else and them, and the next week invite somebody else and both of them. And then you won't have cliques anymore, people. Start inviting people into your group instead of excluding them. I know this isn't popular. I know you're not going to like hearing some of this. But I'm asking you to consider seriously what Paul has said. Go look it up. It's in the Bible in more than one place. A few years ago, I preached a series of sermons called Lists. And I started out with a couple of lists that Jesus gave us and a couple that Paul gave us and one that James gave. or no, Peter gives. Maybe I'll go find those and put them out. But there's good lists in the Bible too. But Christians can't focus on the good lists. We got to look at those bad lists, and we got to work on them. So, here's what I'm saying. If you're living a life that isn't by God's laws according to sexual immorality, fornication, adultery, you're not going to heaven. You're going to hell. Christians, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to everyone, but I'm talking to you. Don't tell me, well, if the government gives us a penalty, too bad. You know what? I'm the pastor that says I'll even do a wedding in front of God and man and go to be a secret wedding. I don't care if we file paperwork with the government or not. I'm not about our government. Our government has their rules. This is married, this isn't. Fine, it varies from state to state. Common law marriage is legal in some, not legal in others. I don't care. But in front of God and man, are you husband and wife? That's acceptable in my book. Maybe not in everybody's. But Christians, I know too many that are violating that. And that's probably why my church stays so small, huh? No hatred in heaven. No hatred or no heaven. I hear people say, well, I don't hate them, but I don't like them. I don't like to be around them. The truth is you're quibbling. That's hate. That's in my book. Probably in the other person's book too. The only question is, what does God look at it as? I thought God was the one that said we're supposed to love each other. That means put each other first. Now, if you're going around saying, well, I don't like them, you probably aren't putting them first. I think God would call that hate. Don't quibble, people. Don't quibble with God. You're playing a dangerous game and you're going to lose. Christians, we can't be perfect. I understand that. But God looks on the heart. And the heart has to be one that says, I want to strive to be perfect. And that means perfect with everyone. The good people, the bad people, the evil people, the great people, the popular people, the unpopular people, the pretty people, the ugly people. It don't matter, they're people. Our society thrives on jealousy and envy. Christians like to say, oh, well, I don't have a problem with that. Liar. Advertising. I don't care if it's TV, radio, newspaper, or Reader's Digest, or Time Life, Newsweek, or any other from billboards. Advertising is all based on envy and jealousy. Well, almost all. They want to make you jealous of the people that have that, so you'll go buy it. They want to make you envious of those people so that you'll buy their product, so you'll be like those people. Buy our product. It'll make you 10 times more beautiful in 10 minutes, and it'll bring you $1 million overnight, and everyone will go buy it if you sell it right. Because we're all envious and jealous. And that's where Christians end up in severe budget issues. I hear it all the time from Christians. Great missionary comes in, says, we're going to do a short-term missionary trip. You need $1,400 to join this one. I'd love to have you all with. And people in the church are saying, oh, I wish I could go, but I don't have the money. And probably have $1,400 a month in car payments and RV payments and credit card debt. And if you weren't so envious and jealous of all that stuff, you wouldn't be buying everything on credit, so you got it now. Christian workers, your jealousy and envy destroying your ministry. Christians thrive on discord and factions and dissensions. I said earlier we call it denominations, but oftentimes we call them different churches. You know, some churches, there's reason why you have 2 or 3 or 4. In Cheyenne, I can understand. We got 85,000 people in the area. And if a denomination has a couple of churches, I understand that. And some people like big and some people like small. I understand. But if your denomination has 2 churches that are 6 blocks apart from each other and they're the same size as each other, you got a problem. That's a faction, a division. If you got, 7 churches in 3 square miles and they're all little tiny ones, you got a problem. Christians, bottom line, are you friendly? Are you thinking about others? I mean, a pastor that gets on the TV and is talking about something that happened, and he says, people just don't respect the church anymore. My response was, duh. What rock have you been hiding under? Respect for the church has been dwindling fast in my lifetime. From the time I was a boy, it's been going downhill ever since. And I'm not talking about my respect. Anybody, any sociologist, anybody with any kind of brain power can see that trend down. And I say it's partly because Christians aren't friendly to everyone. Not just your friends, people, to everyone. What's a real church? A real church is composed of real Christians. Duh. We all should have known that. And real Christians are friendly to everyone. You got a visitor there? Everyone should go shake their hands. Oh, I got a story to tell there. It's not in my notes, so I'll throw them away. The wife and I were in our motorcycle leathers, and we pulled into a church, and we went inside, and they were praying before church. So almost everyone was there. All the men were wearing suits and ties. I'm in full leather. All the women had their long hair up in a bun, and they were wearing floor-length dresses, floor-length, no skirts. And those dresses came up to here. And my wife's got short hair and she's in full leathers, and she weren't wearing no dress. And I'm thinking, this is deliverance territory. And everybody in that church, when they finished prayer meeting and before service started, I swear every person in that church shook our hands. And they had a greet your neighbor period during the middle of the service, and I swear everyone shook our hands again, and some of them I think did it twice. And when we got ready to leave at the end of the day, half of them nailed us again, and ever since then when they see me around town, Pastor Velcro, hey! Now they believe a little different than I do. I happen to believe they're real Christians. They welcomed in the stranger. And it wasn't a one-time deal. It's ever since. And I've been back. Now, Christians, I'm asking you, are you a real Christian? It's not me that has to decide. It's God. Get real.